All right.
Just so you know for future.
Thank you very much. And we should be live. If we aren't yet, we will be. And let me close out these screens, and I'm going to be looking at my other screen over here so I can read the comments and stuff like that. I can either read them to you, Peter, or you can read them, but we are live. We are recording. So stoked to have you here. I'm going to do an official introduction here in a moment, but I wanted to put this into the group. So if you're watching from the Bradley Grinnen business page, that's awesome. Thanks so much for being here. I'm just going to share this into the group. If you're not in the Coach Launcher group, jump in the Coach Launcher group. There is so much free, deep training. I try to share more in the Coach Launcher group than for free than most people would share in programs that they pay for. So here we go. Peter Frumenti. I'm just going to do Peter Frumenti and tag you. And boom, we're now in the Coach Launcher group, and I'm going to open this up and mute it. Peter, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So I launched this group. It's within the last year. It's only been, several months. And I knew from the moment I began this group that you were the person I wanted to interview in here. And we've known each other for a while now, maybe a couple of years even. We've met in person. We've had conversations. We broke bread together. All these great things. And, but I knew you were the person because I know this is probably the number one biggest pain and misunderstood concept or principle or action that has to be taken, which is actually being either on the phone with somebody or face-to-face with them. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here. For me, this is like, we've done it. Like, I'm not going to close the group down now, but I appreciate you being here. And here's why. Let me say this, and I've said it already in writing before. I'm looking over at this screen, everybody, because this is where I can see Steve English. Good to see you, brother. Steve's a great guy, Peter. I've spoken with him. We did a Facebook profile audit. I love having him in the group. You're the person, bar none, for certain, that I've learned the most from on what to do with an enrollment call or a sales call or a discovery call or a strategy session, whatever you want to call it, so that you can hide from the word sales. You're the person that I've learned the most from. And the interesting thing, why it really works for me learning from you, is because you teach how I can authentically be myself, feel really good about what I'm doing, the service I'm providing, and even how I'm helping somebody on that call, if they end up working with me or not. And that was a game changer for me. That has literally changed everything for my business. So I appreciate you being here, man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Peter Frumenti. He's been in the group, I think, since we started, but this is the first time because you've been on the other side of the world. So scheduling has been a little difficult. And Peter also works with my clients. He's in there monthly, helping them with these calls. And great to have you here, Peter. Thanks for coming.
Could you just travel around with me and say those kinds of nice things to me everywhere we go? That would be amazing.
Peter, I can. The best thing would be for us to hop on a call and I'll ask you some questions to see if it's really a fit. Okay.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good, Bradley.
All right, cool.
It's funny because we've been trying to schedule this for like months. I think at least 3 different times we've had a conversation. Oh, we should get you on that interview in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. How's next week? And then either I say, oh, Tuesday, and then you go dead, or you say, how about Tuesday? And then I go dead, silent, for a day or two, because we just couldn't find a time that met. Because I've been in Bali for the last few months, but I'm back in the States. I'm in Pennsylvania right now, actually with a good friend of mine and the legendary Tony Banta.
Everybody knows Tony Banta, king of client success. He's the first person we interviewed in here. If you haven't met Tony or seen that interview yet, after this, go to the unit section, interviews. He's the first one.
Yeah, so brilliant guy, helped us with a lot of our client success. We were a client of his, and then we've become friends and now business partners. So I'm actually working out of his office today. So he might peek his head in at some point.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, if he does, have him come in and wave. Peter, this is so critical. It's one of probably the biggest pain points for new coaches because, and I'll speak, that's from having conversations with lots of people. And then I'll also speak from my experience. My first 3 years, I had no idea what to do on a phone call with people. I tried, building rapport. I tried being their friend. I was like, if I'm just friendly enough and they like me, they'll hire me. I tried coaching them past their biggest issue in the first call so that, they would say, oh, he's brilliant. Like he could really help me. And none of those things worked. Like if people needed, if a friend was going to do it, they wouldn't be talking to me and their friends would have already helped them solve their problem.
Right.
I would coach them past something and they'd be like, oh, great, thanks. I don't need your help now. But I know, and then they're going to wake up the next morning. No way is that problem solved in a 40-minute call.
Right.
So it's a real pain point. And I guess the first question I want to ask you, Peter, and I want everybody else, thanks for saying hi, Donna, Paul, Justin. I just met Justin not too long ago. Such a great guy, he and his wife. Steven's here. All right. So if you have questions, bring them because we are going to answer them and we'll save some time at the end to do Q&A. This is such a confusing topic and everyone is talking about what they need to do. All marketers and high closing ticket professionals with that in their banner, they're always, telling me, I trust you all bring into this group and, help our people. What is the point of this call? And what is it we're actually trying to do?
Yeah. And we were talking about strategy session
we're talking about strategy session, sales call, enrollment call. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what we're trying to do is help the client get clarity on the problem that they've got, like actually diagnose the problem. Right. Okay. Yep. And then we're trying to understand like kind of what they've tried and what their doubts are about their ability to fix it. And we're trying, and not just us understand, them to understand as well. We're helping them get clarity on that, as well as what it's actually costing them to not fix it.
That's huge that you point out the difference that we're helping them to get clarity on their stuff while we're diagnosing.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes. So if I look down, it's just because I don't miss an opportunity.
I love it. And Bradley's like the best student of this stuff ever. I mean, he takes everything that I've ever coached him on, and he immediately implements it and comes back, goes, hey, this is what happened. This is what I did. And he's, this is a skill that's really great because all the sales calls that I do, you'd be amazed how often I will have somebody actually thank me for that call because it's not a sales call. Mm-hmm. It's an enrollment call. We're enrolling them in the future that they want to create, and maybe that's working with us if it makes sense. If they qualify as somebody that we can help, and they're motivated enough to do the work it's going to take to actually get the result. So what we're doing is we're helping them get clarity. We're getting clarity at the same time on what they're struggling with and what they're diagnosing the problem, and we're getting clarity on their doubts about solving it and what it's actually costing them. And then we're qualifying them to see if they're a good fit for us. But because the point of this call is not to sell. And I think as soon as you make that transition, that switch, and you go, oh, I'm not on this call to sell. I'm on this call to serve. I'm on this call to help the person I'm talking to get clarity. And then if that clarity says, yeah, I need to solve these problems, I don't know how to do it, it's costing me like, whatever, maybe it's a ton of money. Maybe it's the chance to, die at a young age and have a heart attack if maybe you're a health coach, or it's, whatever it is, it's costing them that, if they're serious about fixing it and they qualify as somebody that you can help, then this is really just you getting the clarity. And then in those cases where they are someone you can help and they really do want it, then you go through and you may enroll them in the opportunity to move forward. But no matter what, they're going to be enrolled in that future they want. And if you can help them, great. Sometimes I talk to somebody like, I'm not the right fit for you, but let me refer you to somebody who can absolutely help you. And it's funny because people love that. I mean, I've had people who want to give me money. I'm like, no, I'm like, this is just not the right fit. I don't think this is what's best for you. Let me refer you over here. And then those people give me more referrals than anybody because they know that I was never trying to sell them.
I had that call yesterday, and I was listening to this wonderful, brilliant woman. She was telling me what's going on. I was asking questions, but you know who came to my mind? I thought to myself, because I'm going through the checklist, can I help this person with this problem? Yes, I can. You know who actually would be the best fit in the world would be Jimmy Fisher. So I was just like, hey, listen, can I just stop you right now? I know the person. Can I help you? Yeah, I know the person who's a better fit. And I just texted Jim. I was like, Jim, do you have any spots open? And he goes, depends. So he goes, if it's for someone that you know, yes. And so I just connected them an email, and they're setting up, a phone call. But I know he's going to love working with her. She is going to be so grateful working with him. And I talk about all the time in the Coach Launcher group. When you're showing up and you just want the best for your potential clients and your current clients, from there out, it's all wins. It just works so well that way. And I think that's probably what resonates so much with what you teach and how you teach people, your ability. It's why I have you work with my clients, your ability to transfer that knowledge from here, but then also from here. It's a big deal. It really is a big deal, because every new coach I've ever worked with, they've all said this to me. But it also tells you I qualify people. So I don't work with somebody who probably wouldn't. I don't want to sound salesy or icky or pushy.
Yeah.
That's their biggest concern.
It's interesting because the very first thing that I do almost always when I go into speak at a conference or somewhere is I always ask, what is the first word that comes to mind when I say sales? Oh, pushy, icky, salesy, some combination of words that describe yuck, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's like, these are a room full of usually entrepreneurs who really are trying to do good in the world, that want to help people, but they're, a lot of times they're struggling. And one of the reasons they're struggling is because they don't see sales as service. And I cannot stress enough. And that's what the entire authentic enrollment process that our team developed and is really all about, is like, and it's not even just sales. It's leadership. It's having authentic conversation. And if we all worked a little bit harder to have more authentic conversations in our business, in our home, out when we're at the coffee shop, you'd just be amazed at what actually happens when you stop for a minute and you really care enough to listen to somebody, to ask powerful questions. And boy, I have authentic enrollment conversations all the time, just out in public. And many times those people refer me or become a client because, they recognize that I'm listening. I care. I'm trying to help them get clarity so that they can move their life forward in some way. And that's my passion at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To help more people, get what they want.
Okay. So I've got 2 questions. I'm going to put them out there and let you decide which direction to go. And also, Peter, when you talk, there is a tiny, it's not feedback, but it's like a high pitched thing. So I don't know what it is, but this is totally, whatever we're going to talk about is worth people sitting through. So sit through it.
Let's see. Hold on.
Oh, there you go. I got you.
Yep.
All right, there we go. Is that better?
Oh, it's way better.
All right, we'll just take this off.
I don't know what kind of equipment you're working there as far as computer or laptop, but it sounds great.
Well, I've got my whole other setup with my, podcasting mic and everything else, but it's all set up for my webinar that I'm going to be doing in about 45 minutes. So
I love that. I love that that's on the back end of this, and everyone's going to have the opportunity to go over to that too. But Justin says better. Art Mitchell says test. I love it. So here's my 2 questions, Peter, and then you just decide which one is better to answer first, and I'll make sure we come back to the second one. One of them is, so what is so difficult for new coaches and then even experienced coaches? What is so hard about actually having these calls that people get so uptight and stressed out about? And the other question is so what is it like? How do you have that call in a way where you actually are serving, you feel like you're serving, and you're authentically being yourself? And I'll let you decide which is the better one to answer first.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna answer the second one first, then I'm gonna make you tell me what the first one was again.
Okay, great.
You can ask me two questions at once. My brain doesn't. So really the biggest thing is, and I've said this to you, and I know that a few others have said this. There's a breakthrough for them in realizing this. It's just a conversation, right? We have a tendency to go, oh, I've got a sales call today. No, I've got a conversation with somebody, and I want to help that person get clarity. And I want to determine if I can help them, which I know I can, maybe not by them buying my program, maybe not enrolling to work with me, maybe it's by referring them somewhere else. But I know I can help them just by listening, by helping that person get clarity. And when you start to do that, you start to realize it's not about the sale. It's not about the outcome. It's really just about being present with the person who's on your calendar for those 45 or 60 minutes and really helping diagnose what's going on and helping them to see what's going on. Because once they have that clarity, now finally, most people who are looking to buy some sort of, they're looking for transformation, they don't really know what their blocks are, right? We all have blind spots.
Yeah.
And so if all you do is pitch them and spend the entire call, either coaching, sometimes we coach them, we start consulting and telling them what to do and like offering training. And we haven't even, a lot of times I hear these calls of people who go, oh, I did this call and I coached them. I know they thought it was great. Why didn't they enroll? And it's like, well, a couple of reasons. One, because look, if the truth is that you could solve their problem in one phone call, then great, solve it in one phone call and send them off and wish them the best. But you can't. More often than not, if they're looking for transformation, it's not going to happen in one phone call.
Yep.
And we as coaches all know that.
Peter, I don't want to interrupt, but like I've had conversations with people like, well, Tony Robbins does it, in 1 hour in front of a camera. And what they don't understand is that person filled out a book worth of paperwork beforehand. And they have now, after that intervention, whether it's at UPW or, Date with Destiny, they have a personal coach from Tony's team for the next year.
Right.
He's not solving that problem in an hour.
No, he's not. And in fact, if you watch Not Your Guru, which is his documentary that he's got, one of the things, there's a scene in there where he does coach somebody to like break up with their significant other right there in the room, and they do it. And then later they cut to, share, well, they did after they left the room, they got back together. And, like the reality is that, the lasting change comes because they do enroll them into a longer year-long program.
Right.
And they have to do that work. And that's the reality.
Yeah. And you've used the analogy of a heroin addict. Like maybe you talk them out of it, and maybe you're even like your friends are, hey, let's just stay on the phone. I'll stay on the phone with you until we both fall asleep, and you won't go out and find heroin. And then you both fall asleep on the phone talking for hours, and you wake up, you feel great. They wake up and they're going to get heroin. Like the problem is not gone.
Right. No, it's absolutely not. And so it's really, so I think that the number one thing is remembering that it is just a conversation and that all we're doing is trying to help the person get clarity. And then, there is, you do have to coach them through their fear, right? And that's what, we're talking a lot about that on the webinar I'm doing today, which is all about the authentic enrollment process, is specifically that, at the end of the call, even if they're like super excited and they're like chomping at the bit, many times, especially if you've got a higher ticket price point, which if you're providing transformation, you should, because the reality is that you need to keep improving and you need to have enough profit margin that you can get them everything that they need to succeed and to be able to continue to grow your business and scale so you can help more people. Because if you're creating transformation, then you want to get your products out there, your offer out there. So it's really just key to recognize that, you're just getting them clarity, and then you're coaching them through any fear that they have. And here's something that I say to a lot of people. It's like, if somebody, many times at the end of a call, of a strategy session, they'll come to you and they'll say, oh, well, they'll say at the end of the call, I really want to do this, but, I have to think about it. Or, gosh, I really, it's a lot more money than I thought it would be, or whatever. And most people, even though they said the entire call, this is exactly what I need, I've wanted this change forever. I always get really close and I always back away and I never actually follow through, all those kinds of things. And then what happens? They get to the end of the call and they're doing exactly what has always held them back. Now, if you were being paid to coach them, then you would absolutely coach. And they came to you and they said, gosh, I've been thinking about doing this thing. I know I need to do it. I'm ready to do it. And then all of a sudden they went, oh, I want to think about doing it. I'm not going to take action, right? You would coach them through that fear and you would help them commit to taking action.
Yep.
But when you're on the strategy session, they haven't paid you yet. And so you don't give that high level of coaching to coach them through their fear. And the only difference between once they're a client and the strategy session is they haven't paid you yet. And when you think about it that way, it's like, well, then you're just not serving them at the highest level because they haven't given you money yet. And that's what you should be doing, is always serving them at the highest level. Sorry, Bradley, go ahead.
No, it's no apologies necessary at all. It's like, I remember two things. When I was a pastor, I had office hours and I would sit in my office and people would come to my office and we do counseling together. And then they come back the next week and I'd be like, okay, so did you do these things we talked about? No, I didn't. Right. And after a while, it was just like, I just would say, I'm not doing this anymore. And I remember when I had my first client and they returned homework like within 48 hours. And I was like, wow, this person is on fire. I've never seen this before. And then I had my second client and they did the same thing. And I had my third client. And that's when it dawned on me, oh, they've invested in themselves.
Yeah.
Like they're going to do the work because, and I had someone say it to me yesterday. Hey, I would have quit on this a while ago if I hadn't have paid you to do this work together. And that's huge. And the second thing is, I remember the first coach I hired, I was in such a rock bottom place in my life. And it was $400 per month for 2 30-minute phone calls, right? And I'll tell you, it was Maston Kipp. So this was before he was on Oprah or, anything like that. And when I hung up the phone, I wept after giving him my credit card because I had never, I kept it a secret because I thought people would think I was crazy. This was like 12 years ago. I wept because I realized I have never made that kind of investment in myself for something I couldn't touch. It changes everything. Anyways.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, that's huge. Now there was a first question, and I don't remember what it was.
The first question is: so what's so hard? Why do people get so stressed out about these calls? If it's just a conversation, is it because they don't see it as a conversation? Is it because they don't know what to do, or it's just? I see these questions in groups all the time. Help! I've got a call for a sales call, and I don't know what to do. And there's some people think they know what to do and they get stressed out.
So like, how do they manage that stress? How do they
why do you think they're so stressed out? First of all, and second, I'll get into the second one, but why do you think they're stressed out in the first place?
Well, I mean, one of the things is they're focused on the outcome. I mean, especially newer coaches, they're wanting to make the sale, right? Like they're looking to grow their business. And, maybe they've worked with no clients yet or a couple of clients and they're just getting started. They haven't done, a lot of these calls. We tend to just fear the unknown. And it's like, well, and then the other thing is most people have a real fear around sales, around asking people for money, around, promoting themselves. And all of those things. And so one of the key things that you've really got to get in the habit of doing, especially when you're new, is really like focusing on that belief and cultivating that level of belief within yourself that, hey, I'm good at what I do. I'm going to, I have a ton of integrity. And let me give you an example of this. The very first coaching client that I ever took at a high ticket price point, I should say, I remember like it was a new offer. I was like super nervous about it. They were paying me 5 figures. And I'm like, okay, so what happens if this doesn't work? What happens if I can't? And I think this is really relevant to your newer coaches. And so I put that money in a savings account and I didn't touch it for the entire time that I worked with that client. Well, until they started getting results. And then once they were getting results, and I was like, okay. And when I say getting results, look, it's not your responsibility to get your clients results. It's your responsibility to provide a process that will allow them to get results. It's their responsibility.
That's so crucial. I love it.
So anyway, I put the money aside, and then that client who, by the way, was, from the very first time I ever spoke to her to now, she's built a $2 million a year business.
Awesome.
From zero, from almost nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's, and that's one of those things where you're just looking at that going, hey, can I help somebody? Well, I have the integrity. I'm going to make sure I do everything that I can to help them. I'm going to provide the path. So having that belief is a big part of it. And then just like I said, back to the thing I said for the second question, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when you're just starting out, you're probably going to need to have a lot of those conversations and screw some of them up. Put in the reps, like you go to the gym, put in the reps and you will eventually build the muscle. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. How about this? You're not going to enroll. This is what I tell my clients. You're not going to enroll the first person you get on the phone with. So get on the phone and have that call. Get it over with. Just have fun. Now, you might,
right.
but if you don't start, if you don't take your first few steps, you're never going to run the marathon. You never will. If you don't get out the door and run your really crappy 30-minute 2 mile, you're never going to end up running the marathon. Peter, because I know there are people in here that would love this. Can you walk us through, and we don't have time for like an in-depth overview if we're going to do Q&A, but what do you teach people to do on those calls? Like, what are the big things? What are the big items that they have to do in that call in order to show up and serve really well?
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing is relax, and I can't stress that enough. Like, do whatever you got to do to relax. I recommend a couple of minutes of just like deep, breathing before you get on a call, and just center yourself and just focus on having a great conversation with the prospect. Like that's really key. Is really just picture having a very smooth conversation where you're helping, get to know somebody and, and think of it a little bit like you're talking to a friend. I mean, yes, you need to be a leader and you need to lead the call, but it's an intimate conversation, because in order for somebody to move forward into typically what's going to be any kind of transformational offer is going to be that they do feel comfortable, and they've got to feel comfortable enough to kind of give you everything that you need to understand where their pain is at and why they're willing to invest. So that's the very first thing, is really make sure that you're in the right headspace, that you're focused, that you're comfortable, that you're not attached to the outcome. And then once you do that, the next piece of it is to you're gonna start the call out, build a little bit of rapport, get to know the person a little bit. Hey, where are you from? How's the weather there? whatever. And then it's really just, okay. So then you want to frame the call, and you really want to just focus on, okay, so here's what's going to happen today. Today's call is going to be really so that I can understand like where you're at, where you want to be, what the gap is between here and there. If I can help you fix that, I'll show you exactly what that looks like. But more than anything today, I want to help you get clarity, and we're going to have a little bit of fun too. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Right. So you're going to frame the call, because if you don't do that, especially a lot of us, a lot of these new coaches that are starting to messenger and on organic, sometimes the person thinks, oh, they're just jumping on a call to be, friendly with me, which you are, but you still want to frame that, hey, if I can help you, I'll share with you what that looks like.
Yeah.
So then once you actually, get into it, then you want to understand three things. You want to understand the problem that they're actually having. This is where you're actually going to be asking questions so that you understand the problem, and don't assume anything.
Peter, let me just stop you right now.
Yeah.
Folks, if you have never worked with Peter before, if you're not a client and on those calls, Morgan's here, she's saying dream team right here. She's had massive success with your help. If you should be taking notes on this right now. So if you haven't written down, what's the first thing, Peter?
Well, the very first thing is to, you're getting in the right headspace, right?
Right.
But then it's framing the call.
Okay, beautiful. All right, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's okay. That's okay.
This is fantastic.
So now you're diagnosing the problem. and really you're just whatever questions you need to ask to have that clarity of what's actually going on. And so then once you feel like you understand the problem, and here's the thing, don't assume anything. Make sure that you do understand the problem. Ask clarifying questions till you're totally clear. If there's anything that said that you don't understand, or there's something tonally that they do, or you notice that their body language changes if it's in person, or just something that's seems, ask about it. Hey, I noticed that you kind of trailed off there when you said that. Like, what was going on there? Don't be afraid to ask those hard questions. And then remember that even if it's pretty clear to you what's going on, ask the questions that help them say it so that they get clear. It's not enough for you to know. Especially once you start doing a lot of these sessions, you're gonna know 3 minutes in, I got a pretty clear picture of what's going on. You still have to treat it like every other call and keep asking the questions and keep making sure that you understand it and you have it.
Yep.
Then you need to understand what doubts they've got about their ability to fix it. What have you tried? Do you have a system to solve X? For example, let's say you're a health coach, and it's and the number one thing they're talking about is their procrastination. Well, one of the questions you might ask would be, so do you have a process to deal with the procrastination when you get really excited and you say you're going to do something, and then the next day comes up and you don't do? Do you have a process for dealing with that? Well, no, they don't. You want to make sure though, because they might have something they're trying, and maybe it's half working or not working, but chances are they don't. So you want to understand that. You want to get them to clarify that, and then you want to understand what it's actually costing them. Now, this is really easy in a business offer, right? It's I help people go from 0 to 10,000 a month, so it's costing them 10,000 a month to not have my help. But there's more than just the monetary cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So even in business offers, there's more than just the monetary cost, right? There's, I'm working so hard, I'm missing out on my kids, I'm not seeing their softball games or whatever. And then
I want my wife to be able to leave her job, or I want my husband to see that I can do this.
Right. I promised my wife I'd get her new car a year ago, and then I got laid off, and just never, I started this business. I've never been able to get it to a point where I could do that. Whatever it is, those are the kinds of non-monetary costs. And then in a non-business offer, it may be things like, I'm going to die of a heart attack, and I'm not going to see my daughter get married. I don't have the energy to run around with my kids. There's both those monetary costs and there's non-monetary costs. You want to ask about both, even if, you get clear on the monetary, and you want to get deeper than just that. You want to understand, how does that feel that you aren't able to get your wife that car, that you want, whatever. So you really want to understand what it's really costing them at a deep level. And the key thing with all this is, don't stay surface level. And especially for all of you guys that are coaches, coaching is about getting below the surface and getting to the blocks. And so, but when we get on the sales call, we just we have a tendency to lock up.
Yep.
Right? Oh, well, I don't want to ask that because I might offend them. Well, what are you afraid of if you offend them? If they're your coach and they're paying you, you're willing to offend them if it's going to get them results. So be okay with breaking that rapport on the sales call. You can always get it back. But that's what leadership is about. It's sometimes asking questions that people are going to be uncomfortable. And I've said this to you before, Bradley, I think if you're not willing to get outside your comfort zone and ask the hard questions, how the hell can you expect them to get outside their comfort zone and invest?
It's hypocrisy. It's like, how do you, if you don't have a coach, or if you haven't had a coach or aren't open to having a coach, how do you expect somebody else to be open to hiring you as a coach? I mean, it's just hypocrisy.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
So that's really it. So it's like you want them to get outside their comfort zone, then get outside of yours and ask the hard questions. And guess what? When you show that kind of leadership, they're going to see the value, and that's when they're going to be willing to make an investment to work with you. So that's really key.
Okay. So we've got, get yourself prepared.
Yep.
Set up the framework of how the call is going to go. And then you're trying to diagnose what's going on, right? And go to those deep questions. And then what?
So then once you've really clear and you've got it, then what you want to do is you want to actually qualify that there's somebody that you want to work with.
Tell us more about that.
So there's two reasons why you do this. One is because you don't want to work with people who aren't motivated, who aren't coachable. You don't want to work with people that, maybe there's like certain prerequisites that you require for them to be successful with you. So for example, let's just say, I used to work for a very successful high ticket coach. And, one of the things that we would ask is, do you have a list? And if they had a list, we knew we could absolutely get them results very quickly. And I mean, a couple email sequences, they could put $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the bank. Mm-hmm. If they didn't have a list, we could still help them, but they needed to have money to spend on ads. So if they were spending their last dollar to get into this program and they didn't have, if they had a list, fine, spend your last dollar, you're going to make it back. No problem. You've got a list of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. If you didn't, then then really, like, you don't have a list, you don't have any money for ad spend, then spending your last dollar to get into this program is not going to be fruitful, right? So those are prerequisites. So we want to understand those kinds of things. So we want to qualify and really understand, is this somebody that we can help? Is this somebody we want to work with, right? One of the great things people will ask a lot at the end of a call, they'll ask, hey, how much time do I need to put aside to this? And we have a tendency to say, oh, you can do it in 15 minutes a day or 3 hours a week or whatever. And, the reality is it's like, well, however much time it takes for you to hit your goals, is there anything more important from what you've showed me? Is there anything more important than this? Right? Like it takes the time it takes, and it depends on the person. And I'm not going to, I don't want to tell them, oh, it's only taking 15 minutes a day, because all I'm doing there is I'm actually selling them. Right?
Yep.
I don't want to tell them, oh, well, God, it could be 15, it could be 5 hours, just depends. And if I tell them 5 hours, they might not buy. And so what I really want to do is go, hey, is there anything that's going to stop you?
Yeah.
I mean, a little more time, is that going to make you not? Because if that's the case, then this isn't going to work for you.
Yeah.
So qualify that. Does that make sense?
Oh, I get that question, especially for new coaches, for executives too, both of them, they want to know how much time it's going to, and it's a real question because they're working one job or two jobs and They just want to know, can they do it? But my answer is always really similar to that. And I learned it from you. So that's why it's really similar.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how much time won't you spend on it to make it happen, and then I talk a little bit usually at that point about my story, single dad, 2 daughters living in a 1-room flat and, putting them to bed and then getting on the phone with West Coast clients from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, and then getting up at 5 in the morning so that I can write content before my daughters get up. It's just what do you want to do to make it happen? If it isn't a little difficult, it's probably not worth doing.
Right. 100%. And so there's, as I said, there's really 2 reasons we qualify. One is to make sure we really want to work with them. And that's really the reason. But the added benefit, I should say, to qualifying for that reason is that when you do that, the prospect goes, oh, this isn't somebody who's just going to sell me no matter what. This is somebody who wants to understand me and wants to make sure that I'm going to be successful before they try and pitch me.
And the key qualifier there is you actually have to be that person.
Right.
It can't be a technique. You actually have to be the person who cares enough to say, yes, I do want to qualify them.
Yeah.
So that what they're getting is actually authentic. Right.
Right. Exactly. And that's the biggest thing. If you're just, oh, let me ask these qualifying questions, man, I can't wait to pitch them, but you're just trying to make them feel like you're qualifying them, it's not going to work.
It's not sustainable.
No, not at all. Yeah. And this is the thing, this is why so many salespeople do burn out, because they don't have this authentic way of doing things. They're just focused on making the sale. And I will tell you, I have made more money turning business away than I've ever made trying to make somebody buy when they really weren't a good fit.
I tell new coaches all the time, and it's just what I do, you're authentic enrollment. I'm natural enrollment method. Goes really well. That's why we work together. Yeah. What I do doesn't work long-term sustainably unless you actually care about helping people. And that's some of my questions in the diagnosis is for me to find out, does this person actually care? Or do they just want to build a business. It's fine if they want to build a business. I'm not the person for them if that's all they want to do. Like for me, I've got to work with people who want to make an impact and they want to make a big impact. So that's, again, all the reasons why I learned from you and we work together on stuff is for that. So what comes after that? What comes after you qualify?
So once you've actually qualified, then you want to kind of recap and make sure that you understand. And this is really kind of part of the qualify a little bit. Is just sort of okay. So just want to make sure everything I've heard. What you really want is you want X, but you're not able to do that because of ABC. Do I have all that right? Is there anything that I've missed there? And it's like no, that's really it. So then it's like, okay, great. Well, and if you are certain that, hey, based on those problems and everything that you can serve them, then it's all right. I am 1,000% confident we can absolutely help you solve every one of those problems. Would you like me to share with you a little bit about how we would go about that? And it's just like, yeah. And most time they would say, yeah, absolutely, that'd be great. So the recap, and then the recap leads straight into the actual offer. And the offer itself is really just, hey, here's the here's the things that we're going to do. It's a high level overview, right? We don't want to get into the weeds and give them every little detail, because then they start thinking and they start asking all these questions and they start to get confused, and you're pushing them further away from what they really want. So it's just a high, hey, the 3 things it's going to take to solve this are X, Y, and Z. And as you speak to them, it's like, so first we're going to do X. Now, X is going to solve that problem of, for example, the example I used earlier of, you having to spend all that time working on your business and missing out on your kids' softball games on the weekends and the evenings. So that's going to solve that. And then Y is going to take care of this. And and you want to relate each of the pillars of things that you're going to do to help them with their problem back to the actual cost, to the things that they outlined were important for them to solve. And you want to connect those things so that they see that very clearly. And then once you've gone through all of that, then you want to do basically what I call essentially a trial close. And you just want to kind of go, hey, so, or an assessment essentially, and go, hey, so that's kind of what it looks like. What's your gut say about all this so far? Right? And most of the time they're going to say something like, oh my God, this sounds great. It's exactly what I need. If you've done the call right, that is. That's what I get. So
I get it. I get it. I've not done it right so many times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's, and then assuming that they say, oh yeah, that's it. Great. Awesome. So the way that and then you want to outline the actual price of your program. But so to do that, it's just like, okay, so the way that we work together. So first you're solving the 1, 2, 3, 4 pillars or whatever it is. Now it's okay. What's your gut say about that? Oh, my gut, it feels great. It's exactly what I need. Okay, awesome. Well, we work together for 8 weeks. We have a weekly session, whatever it is. Right. And it's like, that's what it looks like. And then you really want them to ask for the price, because they should be chomping at the bit now. They're like, that's the thing they want to know, because they're like, all right, I want to do this, but what's it going to cost me? And so you want them to ask. Now, sometimes they'll be like, okay, great. It sounds awesome. Let's get started. And you've not even told them the price. And then you just, okay, great. Did you want to, you don't want to then, I don't give them the price at that point. I say, okay, great. Did you want to use Visa, MasterCard? And then they'll say, oh, well, what's the price?
Right.
And then at that point say, oh, well, it's whatever.
And sometimes, Peter, people won't say it. People have such a jacked up relationship with money that they'll be like, well, what do we do next? I'm like, well, we take a payment. Okay. Let's do that. And I'll say, you're going to want to know how much it costs. I know. I've just been afraid to ask. Yeah. And then I say, well, go ahead and ask me. All right. How much? And I tell them.
Yeah. And that's fine too. I mean, it's really just a matter of, they'll say, okay, well, let's do that. And then that's what I usually will say. Well, Visa or MasterCard, almost always they'll ask there. But if they don't, then it's just like, okay, so do you have any other questions before we, get started? Something like that. It should naturally flow at that point, but really all we're trying to do, you've got to be comfortable with it. That's the key. I love it. Yeah. Because if you're not, then they're not going to be either.
I learned that from you, brother. It's key. Okay. So you go through all that is there anything else at this point? Like, you've done your job, you've served them, they become a client, they enroll, and then then you take all of the keys from Tony Banta's book on how to begin onboarding them and really show up to now serve them as a client as best as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's really just a matter at that point of, okay, well, I'm in. Now, sometimes you are going to get objections, and that's the point where you've got to coach them to their fear. And the key thing I want to really point out there. So we've got, so we've essentially got, outlining the offer or the program, then the offer, which is the actual, hey, this is we work at 8 weeks. This is what it costs. Then it's handling any objections that they've got, coaching them through their fear. And that's really about asking questions. And, it's like sometimes you'll get some sort of thing like, maybe if you're doing this right, you do want a part of the qualify earlier on is, hey, is there anyone else that you need involved to make this decision? Are you the sole decision maker? How quickly would you want to get started? You're going to ask them those questions earlier on. That's part of what we teach in Authentic Enrollment. And then that way at the end, if they're like, well, I've got to talk to my spouse, or I've got to talk to my partner, or some other thing comes up, or I want to think about it or whatever. And you just can't get past it. At that point, you really want to say, hey, look, I've been doing this long enough to know that, there's something else going on here. So, just tell me, get real with me. Like you've shared with me throughout the call that nothing would stop you. And now we're here at that point where it's time to actually make the decision. And now there's something stopping you. So it's okay. You can tell me what it is, but I can't help you if I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So really going on with right now. And just ask, and that's just one example. But the point is, you just need to get clarity. You just need to understand what's happening. Just don't be afraid to ask. Some people have so much stuff in their head that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna offend the person. I'm gonna make them uncomfortable. Well, yeah, you are gonna make them uncomfortable. That's part of what transformation is about.
That's part of coaching. Yeah.
Right. Nobody grows without discomfort. And if they know a way, please let me know what it is, because I would really like to buy that program.
To every time we talk, I just learn more, and I'm good at serving people. But every time we talk, man, I love it. Listen, I know you've got in 10 minutes, you're doing a webinar for Authentic Enrollment. So I want to leave time for that. Do you have time to take a couple questions if people have any questions in here? And maybe we could bring you back at another point into the Coach Entre group to dive deeper into this stuff. But do you have time for that, Peter?
I need to get off in about 5 minutes, but here's what I was going to say, actually. Anybody who would like to attend the Authentic Enrollment training that I'm doing tonight, you can go to Sales Team 6, a fan page, just Sales Team 6.
What is it? I'll drop it in right now, or if you want to drop it in.
Well, yeah, and actually, I've got the best way to do it, actually, now that I think about it, we've got a registration set up. So, because if you guys have questions, you can actually ask them. I'm going to do a Q&A at the end of that.
Okay.
It's register.AuthenticEnrollment.com.
I'm going to drop it in.
Right, I'll let you drop it in, because I'm using my little laptop, so I don't have much screen here.
Yeah, and here's the deal, AuthenticEnrollment.com. People in here know that, so I didn't HTTP. I'll go in there. Oh, no, there it is. Got it. All right, sweet. I take great care of the people in here to keep people from running into people who don't care about them as new coaches. And so I'm constantly, people never see it, but I'm constantly exiting people from this group that I know are just full of it and they don't care and they show up to take, they don't want to give. But I fully endorse going over to, I just dropped it right there in the comments. I fully endorse going over to, and I don't make any money from this, but go over to Peter's. It's a free training. You're going to hear some of the best stuff. Again, you're probably going to go deeper, I'm going to assume. So if you're in this group, please go check this out, because if you get a chance to spend more time with Peter, and he's giving it to you right now, go do it for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to stay on that Q&A until every question is answered, and we are going to go really deep. I've got actual slides, and we're going to go through each of the steps. So everything I talked about here, we're going to go into more depth on. I'm also happy to jump back into the group at some point in the future and do a Q&A. Anytime you want me to come in and help your clients, I'm happy to do it, because I know the level of service you provide and what you do for the world.
So Artie said, hey guys, will this be offered again soon? Artie, Monday for all Coach Launch clients at noon Eastern. Peter is actually going to be on a call. You can ask him any and every question. He's going to answer them all to great depth because he works with all of our Coach Launch clients. So you'll get a chance to talk to him on Monday for sure. This replay, I'm going to keep it up in the group if that's okay with you, Peter. Yeah. And I'll probably pin it in the units and pin it over to the right because it's so important. I don't know anybody who gets on and walks through this stuff as deeply as you do. In a free group, and it's not the first time you've done it. And it's just so helpful. It's so helpful for new coaches. I think back to when I was a new coach and all the conversations I have here, and people are just pulling their hair out, trying to figure out like, how do I do this? You know, they don't know how to get on a call in the first place. And then when they do, they don't know what to do. And it's super helpful, man. So.
And what really, so much is how many times, like, I even, know so many people who are high level doing like, a good amount of business, but they wonder sometimes, gosh, could I have enrolled that person? Like, did I just screw that up? Was that a potential sale and I just didn't do it well? And so that's a big part of what, part of my mission is to help I did everything that I could to help serve that person so that I could help them get the transformation that they want. That's really what it's about, is knowing whether or not those calls were closable or not.
I've talked with new coaches because I talked to hundreds of them. I've talked with new coaches who literally have had people say, yes, I want to work with you. And they've turned them down because they just have been afraid to then take that step to enroll a client and then, deliver as a coach. And it's a shame because, after you talk to them for 40 minutes, I know they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just a mindset thing. So Peter, listen, thanks so much for coming on. Have a great time. I've got to hop on another call. And then when I get done with that, hopefully you guys are still on, and I'll try to hop over there depending upon what's going on with my two monkeys out in the living room at that point. And, I'll try to pop back over there just to catch some of that. If you're in here right now
for about 5 minutes after your call, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. And then if you're on my business page, you can see the registration link right there. If you're in the group right now, you can find the registration link. You can go register for Peter's free webinar. And I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate the offer. Everyone, you heard him say he'd come back in and do this again. It's recorded. It's on the replay. So we'll make sure he gets back in here and we'll do this again sometime in the not so distant future. And really do appreciate your time, Peter. I know how valuable it is. I know it's valuable. And all you new coaches, you literally just got tens of thousands of dollars worth of Peter's time right now. And so if you get a chance to say hey to him and thank him, do that, please. Thanks so much, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks, Bradley. Have a good
catch you later.
All
Thanks.
right, bye.
See ya.